Hey, good morning, everybody. I know there's just a few of you here right now, but I want to maximize the time on this recording. I'm currently in one of our up-and-coming Cambodia destinations right now in Ratnakiri province in the city of Ban Luang, which is the northeasternmost province of Cambodia, which we'll be talking about on our slideshow a little bit later. I'm recording outside, so you may hear some birds, a little bit of wind. It's a beautiful day up here. It's a gorgeous country, and I hope some of your guests get to explore up here sometime soon. We're going to be talking about up-and-coming Cambodia, which in many ways is everything that's not Siem Reap, Angkor, and Phnom Penh, just because those are the places that people traditionally visit. I'll be covering a lot of ground, but hopefully it's a really good overview for you, and you can type some questions towards the end. There's a little box on the control panel there for questions. You can type some questions in, and I'll answer them with whatever time I have remaining. Otherwise, you can always email me at trevor@exotravel.com. I can share this slideshow with you. Of course, we're recording it, but I could share the PDF or Google Slides presentation with you so you can look over it at your leisure. Today we're going to be focusing on what's hot for 2019, Cambodia's beaches and islands, new luxury tented camps, Eastern Cambodia, where I'm currently recording from, beyond Siem Reap, and a little bit on some new experiences in classic destinations. So we're going to start with the beach since it's getting to become beach season now. Big development in the coastal area of Sihanoukville are these two new resorts here, the Six Senses and the Alila Villas. And what makes them really great is that they're really close to the Sihanoukville airport, which you can see from this map here. I'm from Hawaii, as you may know, some of you. I have a pretty high standard for what constitutes a beautiful beach or island. And these islands off the coast here are still pretty gorgeous. These two new resorts are definitely game changers, making Cambodia a legitimate beach destination in and of itself, but a great addition to people who are going to visit Siem Reap and Angkor temples, thanks to direct flights from Siem Reap to Sihanoukville, in addition to international destinations, and of course Phnom Penh, from which it's only about a 5 to 6 hour drive, depending on the traffic. The big new opening just recently was the Alila Villas Koh Ruse. The beach there is beautiful, crystal clear water, pretty gentle. There's some little waves in the picture there, but it's quite nice, quite safe for swimming. It's not so deep, so it's pretty good for families with children. But the resort is really beautiful. As I mentioned earlier, they have their own private pier just south of the airport. So it's about a 10-minute drive from the airport to pier, and then another 10 minutes by speedboat to the resort. The other one that's just on the brink of opening, but early next year, is the Six Senses Krabi Island, which is located on an island right near the Alila Villas. This is more of a tropical island hideaway than a beach resort. They have a small private beach on their private island, but for those looking specifically for a beach, the Alila Villas has a nicer beach there. And since they're so close to each other, they could even be combined. If some people wanted to spend, let's say, a week down on the coast, they could spend 3 or 4 days at one and then 3 or 4 days at the other. And have the kind of wellness retreat that you'd expect from the Six Senses, and then a beautiful beach resort over at the Alila Villas. On the islands off the coast, there's Koh Rong and Koh Rong Salum, which can be a little confusing because they're so similarly named. But they're still gorgeous. I first visited the islands about 10 years ago, and the development has been quite slow on the islands. They're mostly small, independently owned boutique hotels. But as you can see from these photos from this year that I took, the beach is gorgeous, the water is crystal clear. And again, you can see that it's quite shallow here. So again, it's quite safe for families with children. You can see on Koh Rong Salum, this is a big bay, so it's really sheltered from the wind and the storms that may come through from time to time. But there is quite a growing selection of resorts on these two islands, in addition to the ones that are closer to the mainland. Remember, again, if you want to ask some questions after about these specific resorts, you can type in your questions, or you can send me an email, and I can give you specific information about them. Rong Salam, as I was saying, Saracen Bay, that's the big bay on the island to the south there. It's gorgeous, white sand beach, pretty chilled out, pretty quiet, not a lot of action, but great for people who are looking for a beautiful, idyllic, relaxing beach resort. Koh Rong is a little bit bigger of an island. There's a number of different beaches. Some are west facing, some are east facing. And that's good depending on the different seasons that you might go and visit, because they get different wind directions at different times of the year. But stunning sunsets, really beautiful water, and we have some good options for people staying on those islands as well. As I mentioned, most of the hotel development on the islands are small independently owned boutique hotels, and there's a couple of small luxury hotels as well. Earlier at the beginning of the year, the Royal Sands Resort opened, and then the Songsa, which has been there for a number of years, is an excellent luxury resort as well. One development that happened earlier this year was that the Cambodian government made Koh Rong National Park, which is Cambodia's first marine national park, which covers the two main islands off of the coast there, plus some smaller islands that surround them. Now, I know that you probably see some seahorses, nudibranch, like that, like macro life. Hopefully now that it's a marine park, that will help the revitalization of the reef and a lot of the marine life. There's fairly reasonable snorkeling. On these islands farther out, there's some good diving still. We'll be developing that as experiences in the near future. Okay, our next topic is luxury camping. This is particularly blowing up right now in southwestern Cambodia. You can see from the map here, not far from Phnom Penh, on the road to Sihanoukville, which is just down toward the bottom of the screen. The new Shintamani Wild is scheduled to open at the end of this month or later this month. Luxury tented camps, really gorgeous jungle there. The Cardamom Tented Camp opened at the very beginning of this year. That's not quite glamping, but that's an excellent place for nature lovers. It's a really beautiful protected area of the forest. And the Four Rivers Floating Lodge, which sustained some damage from flooding earlier this year, but will reopen very soon and more likely better than ever. So these are just three of the main ones that are really creating a lot of buzz nowadays. The Floating Lodge at the Four Rivers. It's kind of like a luxury floating tented camp, which is basically what the name implies. Here you'll have like villas with TVs and DVD players and kayaks, and it's really quite a beautiful area and a good combination of being in the outdoors of Cambodia. Koh Kong, that region, has some of the most unspoiled beauty in Cambodia, and this is a great place to combine like luxury combination with access to that nature. Whereas Cardamom Tented Camp, which you can see from the photo on the bottom right, the tents aren't quite as luxurious, but from the indoors you can see they are very comfortable. Now this is within Botom Sakar National Park. Day trip opportunities at the Cardamom Tented Camp are to go on treks with park rangers into the forest to see some wildlife. They have a lot of exotic birds, otters, the crocodiles. There's the Siamese crocodiles, which is indigenous to the area, which I was guaranteed that I could see if I went on a boat trip with them. I hadn't done that yet, but they also promised the ability to go spearfishing for giant river prawns and then barbecue them on the side of the river. And that sounds like an excellent reason for me to go back sometime soon. But really beautiful, totally solar powered, really great eco project. Shintamani Wild, which is going to be the newest property to open here soon. You can see it's based on a beautiful river, incredible luxury, really awesome experiences to do, trekking, kayaking. You can go out with the chef and forage for ingredients that they can cook in your lunch or dinner. There's a zip line. There's lots of really over-the-top kind of outdoor experiences that you can do here, but with like the highest levels of luxury. Other tented camps, there's actually about 8-10 glamping experience, I would say, to different degrees of luxury that have opened up in the past year, and there's a number that are planning to open up in the near future. Some of them are pop-ups that are only available during the dry season, which is really wanted for some of these more remote areas. And then the Junglu tents, which you can see a photo of there, also plan to be built in various locations beginning around the Angkor area in 2019. So again, if you want more information about this, I have a presentation about all the different luxury tented camps in Cambodia, and I'll be happy to share those with you. Okay, Eastern Cambodia, which is where I currently am. I'm up in the far right-hand corner of that map. Earlier this year, I put together Eastern Cambodia Explorer, which is a 9-night, 10-day program. I've always loved Eastern Cambodia. The challenge always had been that if you drove up this road here to Sen Monram, which is in the far right side towards the bottom, that the road going north up to Ban Lung was this horrible road that you couldn't drive on unless you had a off-road motorcycle, and then only in the dry season. So if you wanted to go to Ban Lung, where I am, you had to go all the way up the Mekong River to Stung Treng and then across. So now that they've built this great road, you can drive from Mondulkiri to Ratnakiri in about 2 hours. So the fact that you can now make this Eastern Cambodia experience as a loop just is such a great way to experience this part of Cambodia, which is so much different from other parts of Cambodia. The program starts in Mondulkiri, which is famous for the Elephant Valley project there, which is kind of like an elephant retirement home. It's a great place for people to get up close to elephants, but there's no elephant riding. You don't get to bathe them. It's kind of seeing them in their natural habitat, which is really kind of a special experience. And then the Booster Waterfall, which I went swimming in a few days ago. Spectacular. It's the largest waterfall in Cambodia. There's a gibbon sanctuary. They have fairly nice tents that guests can stay in and get up early and go visit some gibbons in the forest. And there's some opportunities to visit hill tribes. 90% of the population in Sen Monram or Mondulkiri province are indigenous tribal peoples. So there's a lot of opportunities both there and here in Ratnakiri. The star attraction here in Ratnakiri is Yaklaum Volcanic Lake. It's a giant crater that's filled up with water since 700,000 years ago. We're going to swim in there today. It's beautiful. But the hill tribes are really one of the good things to do here. Yesterday, I drove up to Andong Mace, which is up towards the Vietnamese border. They're building lots of new roads here. It's just amazing. Like a lot of these tribal areas that I first visited 10 years ago, again, you needed an off-road motorcycle just to visit them. And now they're really paving these roads out to these more remote villages. So it's really easy to get out to more remote areas. But because these are indigenous tribal peoples, while they have adopted some Western and Khmer influences in the way they dress to some degree in the homes they live in, they're just right off the road and they're still living pretty much the same lifestyle that they have for tens of thousands of years. And going into these villages and getting to interact with some of the locals, and the older women, they still dress very traditionally. They still do their traditional handicrafts that you can see, you can get some hands-on experiences with now. And then we ended up spontaneously renting a boat and going down the river for about an hour. There's an island that's famous for gold mining, and I actually found a couple of little flakes of gold on the beach. But it was a beautiful place for a picnic. It's just spectacular countryside. I lived in Thailand for many years, and Chiang Mai was famous for hill tribes and elephants and whatnot. But this is really once remote country that's really becoming so easily accessible that now is a really great time to come to Eastern Cambodia to experience the wildlife and to experience the indigenous cultures. And then this plan is to come back down the Mekong to Krache, where they have the freshwater Irrawaddy dolphins. But as I'll show you in a few slides, you can also go from Stung Treng straight across to Siem Reap. So there's a bunch of different routes you can take now thanks to these new roads. So here's some pictures of Mondulkiri. That's some of the waterfall on the top left there. On the bottom left is indigenous people's house, and then the wildlife, gibbons, elephants. Mondulkiri's spectacular countryside. The Elephant Valley project, as I mentioned earlier, is a great place to experience elephants, but they do it for the benefit of protecting the land for the indigenous tribal people, as well as provide shelter to elephants. So there's opportunities to do some volunteer work as well. You can see the stairs there we built as volunteers over a half day. the Booster Eco Park and Waterfall, spectacular waterfalls. You can see at the bottom there. It's just a huge fall. And then there's a zip line that goes over that waterfall. And safe, because I'm a little afraid of heights, but yeah, an exhilarating experience. Dak Dam is one of the local villages in Mondulkiri, where you can go out. The bottom picture there was when we went out to a farm. A lot of the local people, they have homes in a village, and then they set up these makeshift kind of lean-to houses out by their farms and live out there during the harvesting season. And it's really cool that you can get a lot of cultural interaction with the indigenous people. Other attractions, the coffee plantation there is really interesting. They grow avocados, cashews, I don't know, all sorts of exotic fruits and vegetables up in this part of Cambodia. So it's really cool to visit a place where they grow up and learn a little bit more about it. And the Jahuge camp I mentioned is another opportunity. It's funny, it's, you know, sending people just up here for a few days and then up there for a few days. There's more to do than you could even do in a few days now. I wish I could spend a week in each place doing my research. That's why I'm up here for a second time this year. Just because there are a growing number of attractions in this part of Cambodia, as well as a growing number of reasonably nice hotels. The Mayor Hills Resort is excellent for higher-end travelers. Now there's a number of mid-range options, as well as budget options. So I think visitors of every budget will have a really nice place to stay. These are really charming guest houses and hotels and boutique properties. I'm Ratnakiri, where I currently am. You can see the lake there. It's gorgeous. There's 2 volcanic lakes in the region. Yak Baum, the one pictured there, is very close to the town. The 7-tiered waterfall in the center, just spectacular waterfalls up here. And then the tribal villages. One of the fascinating things about the tribal villages, you can see in the bottom left, is they build totems. They carve those after the death of someone they care about, and the totem seems to be some sort of cathartic process that they install at the gravesite and then never return to. Sorry for the background noise. I'm at a hotel here. Okay. This is kind of a fun thing that we did up when we were here in the mud season. It's just an option for people who are into doing a bit more adventurous programs. There's definitely opportunities for adventure travelers. These mud buggies were a whole lot of fun. As you can see on that photo, during the rainy season, some of the roads up here that aren't paved do get pretty muddy. So it is cool to have an option like this. They're not very fast, kind of like a glorified go-kart with the studded tires. So they're quite safe, but really fun. And then, as I said, this journey that I put together travels down the Mekong River to Krache. Krache is most famous for its sunsets and for the freshwater Irrawaddy dolphins. Now there's a couple of times a year opportunities to do some stand-up paddling, to visit the dolphins by stand-up paddleboard. And then there's some French colonial buildings and some old temples that are also really charming and nice to visit. Yeah, let's just mention this one hotel, because this was a new addition this year, just south of Krache. It's called the Relais de Chlong. It's in a small town called Chlong that's on the Mekong River, and it's this beautifully restored French colonial villa. Great old world charm, beautiful location, excellent service, and really close to Campi, the area where the dolphins are located. So again, there's fine hotels for luxury travelers like this. There's some great budget places in Krache. There's a place called Le Tonle, which is a tourism training hotel where they help teach young people a skill that is working in the hotels, and some really nice mid-range places as well. Okay. As I mentioned, that Eastern Cambodia loop did just go, you know, the current one I'd created had gone out to Mondulkiri and then up to Ratnakiri and then down the the Mekong River to Karachi back to Phnom Penh. But I know that like a lot of people are obviously going to want to go to Angkor. So this other new road from Stung Treng over near the Thai border out to Siem Reap really opens up opportunities for altering this itinerary a bit. So you could go from Phnom Penh up to Mondulkiri, up to Ratnakiri, and then via Stung Treng to Siem Reap, and then do the temples, and then maybe fly from there to the beach. Let's say a 2-week trip. That would be amazing. Alternatively, you could start in Siem Reap, and then you can follow the Thai border. You can go up to Preah Vihear Temple, and then to Stung Treng, and then to Ratnakiri, Mondulkiri, and back around that way. So thanks to these new roads, there's a bunch of different ways we can mix and match these provinces that used to be kind of one-way dead end. You had to go out and then come back the same way you traveled there. So I think this is really great. For families, again, like most of these programs can be altered to suit family travelers or adventure travelers. I'm going to do Eastern Cambodia for adventure, Eastern Cambodia for families, Eastern Cambodia for wildlife enthusiasts, just because there are a variety of different things people could do in these areas. But here I wanted to mention one of our products that goes to Stung Treng, just because, again, you can mix and match some of these areas now really nicely thanks to these new roads. So with the adventure team, you know, there's opportunities to do some great biking and do some great kayaking, and this one includes driving a U.S. Army-style Jeep up along the Thai border regions. So really great ways to visit the countryside of Cambodia that wasn't very accessible 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, beyond Siem Reap, obviously everybody's going to Siem Reap. They're going there to see the Angkor temples, which are just north of town. You can see Siem Reap town is here, and the Angkor temples are just here in the center. This map is from beyond the temples, Siem Reap. I did a fam trip a couple of months ago where they started trying to feature some of these attractions. But as you can see from this map, there's so many things to do in and around Siem Reap now, whether it's ecotourism, community-based tourism, visiting artisanal villages, doing different workshops, staying with local villagers, dinner in the rice fields. There's so many things to do in Siem Reap now. I just encourage people to spend more time there because it is really more than the temples. One really fascinating attraction just north of town near Bante Sray is the Ikat and the Golden Silk farms. They're reviving the ancient style of dyeing and weaving silk. It's really a fascinating experience, even if you're not into textiles. Just as an addition onto a day trip, we have a list of different artisanal villages and workshops and experiences that you can mix and match in day trips now that are just fascinating. I'm just featuring a few of them here just to show you the diversity of different things that you can do. There's a silk organic farm. It was founded by a Japanese woman. It's really quite interesting. And again, not everybody's going to be into farming. Not everybody's going to be into silk farming. But there's such diversity of things to do now around Siem Reap, including a lot of these programs like the Angkor Thom Women's Development Center, which is a great place to buy souvenirs. Again, like I always encourage people, rather than buying souvenirs in a market in the center of town, to get outside of town and go to some villages and see where people are making handicrafts and then buy them directly from the artisans. You're usually going to get a much better deal, and it's kind of a heartwarming experience. Another thing to think about as well is homestays. Obviously, there's some wonderful hotels in Siem Reap, but doing a homestay is certainly a great way to get some cultural interaction and experience local life, because lots of people who come to Cambodia say that meeting with people and the Cambodian people is the best thing about Cambodia, which I totally agree with. So homestays are great. Northwestern Cambodia, I think it's certainly worth a mention. There's Banteay Chmar Temple and Preah Vihear Temple are two of the most spectacular temples You know, especially now that the number of visitors to Angkor keeps increasing, and even like Bangnelia, which is just outside Siem Reap, isn't so hidden anymore. You know, so you kind of got to go a bit farther afield to find these wonderful temples that are still in a largely natural state, like Bante Chmar, with very, very, very few people, and they're so easy to get to now, thanks to these new roads. So again, if you look at the map on the left, from Siem Reap up to Bante Chmar, I did that drive in I think about 2.5 hours last month. So you can even go from Siem Reap up to Bante Chmar and loop around as a day trip. Bante Chmar temple is spectacular. There's a really good community-based ecotourism center there where you can do some stuff with local people. There's a silk farm out there that's quite interesting. And then you could even spend a couple nights in Bante Chmar, at least a night, just because it's such beautiful countryside, and then travel down through Battambang and to Pursat, two cities that I love that still don't get a lot of visitors. So, I mean, calling Battambang up and coming, that's probably been 10 years that it's been up and coming. But you know, if you can combine it with a visit to Bante Chmar and then Battambang and go to Pursat and Kampong Chhnang, great artisanal villages. Pursat is famous for its marble carving, and Kampong Chhnang is famous for its pottery. They're beautiful cities if you want to like avoid the crowds a little bit. Otherwise, on the map to the right, you can see you can start in Siem Reap, and then you can drive up to Preah Vihear Temple, which is up on the cliff there. Spectacular, gorgeous temple on the border of Thailand and Cambodia. You can spend the night at the Preah Vihear Boutique Hotel there, and then it's only about 2 hours or so from Preah Vihear to Bante Chmar, and then you can visit that temple there, spend the night there in a homestay. They have a homestay with air conditioning now, so it's quite luxurious for remote Cambodia. But again, spectacular temple. Again, Bante Chmar is only a 2.5 hours drive at a more reasonable speed than I do. But Bante Chmar, Preah Vihear are accessible as day trips, certainly, but with an overnight stay or combining them together, they're just spectacular. Here's an overhead photo of along a hillside up to a cliff that overlooks Cambodia. It's gorgeous, really wonderful. Chmar, which you can see from both the map and the image here, is a massive temple complex. It's the exterior wall is the same size as Angkor, in Angkor, and it was built by the same King Jayavarman VII. You can see from the face tower there on that photo. And the town of Bante Chmar is built up around the old city, and they only get like 4 to 5 groups of visitors. They're looking at like 8 to 10 people a day coming to visit this temple complex, and it's not so big that you can't do it in a day. But again, if you stay in like a homestay near the temple, you can do like a candlelight dinner inside the temple grounds. I think you can even camp inside the early entrance part, but certainly worth inquiring about if you have guests looking for local experiences, but also like unexplored temples that are gorgeous. And here's some information on the homestay, the different things you can do. Yeah, you can do dinner at the temple. You can camp overnight. There's a silk weaving center. You can ride bicycles around the village or an ox cart ride. There's other towns that are a short day trip from there. It's just it's a really special place. And then Battambang, which I think can be combined with the Bante Chmar trip, but is awesome to visit in and of its own right. I guess it's been a long time up and coming, but it's certainly worth visiting. It's got a lot of charm. It's the second largest. It's hardly a city. It's very pastoral. There's great half-day and full-day trips both to the north and the south of the town. Nice colonial architecture, a really interesting art scene developing there because they have the FAR, which is famous for its Cambodian circus, but it's an art school in all sorts of mediums, and their graduates have gone on to do some interesting art projects in Battambang town. And then there's the bamboo train, which had been closed down for a few years as they upgraded the train lines, but riding the bamboo train is a really fun Battambang experience. Okay, Persat I mentioned as part of a possible loop you could do from Battambang to get back to Phnom Penh. What Persat is most interesting for is its marble sculpture. So there's a small village on the east side of Persat that does marble carving. So for people that have a particular interest in that or just happen to be passing through, it's quite charming little stop. Great place again to buy souvenirs because you're buying it from the artisan who carved it, in the past week or so. And then nearby, if you can look on that map, there's a green pin for Krakow. There's a floating village there that very few tourists visit because not too many tourists even travel along this road. But if you're looking for an authentic floating village experience, there's floating and stilted villages near Siem Reap, but this is on the far side of the lake. So this is a great place to get an authentic floating village experience along the way. It's really easy to do on the drive. Again, you can drive from Battambang to Kampong Chhnang or Phnom Penh in one day and just stop in Persat, check out the marble carving village, stop in Krakow, get a boat, go out to Kampong Luang floating village, continue on to Kampong Chhnang. Here's the floating village. They have a really charming church that was built by the Japanese back in the 1980s. It's just an authentic community of people that live on floated houses with floating churches and floating wedding halls and floating cell phone stores. It's a far cry from the floating villages near Siem Reap. And then Kampong Chhnang, which would be like your third stop on this day trip from Battambang to Phnom Penh. It's a great place to see traditional Cambodian culture. You can see they do the traditional style pottery, but then they also make these really cute little piggy banks. Really, really cool stuff. And it's just nice to see authentic experiences like people making ceramics as they have done for centuries. Okay, and then that's the map, just to give you an idea really quickly. From Siem Reap, you can go up to Banteay Chamar, or you can go straight to Battambang. I kind of like going up to Banteay Chamar and then going to Battambang, and then you can even go back to Siem Reap after that, or continue on to Persat, Kampong Chhnang, and to Phnom Penh. Otherwise, like I said, Siem Reap up to Revi here, and then across to Banteay Chamar. That's an easy 2-day, 3-night excursion where you get to see some beautiful temples with very, very few people. Okay, Kampot and Kep, again, not necessarily new destinations, but I certainly could consider them up and coming. Kampot and Kep have developed a lot more slowly over the years than Sihanoukville has, which is really blowing up. And I like the fact that Kampot and Kep have developed slowly, but they're certainly still upcoming in regards to the things that you can do there now. They've renovated these old train cars, so it's now possible to take the train down on the weekends. For those people who are interested in trains, which some people are, and traveling by train, which is quite charming, if a little bit slower than driving. There's some great new activities. Actually, the kite surfing has been there for a while, but stand-up paddling on the Kampot River was a great experience. There's rock climbing and caving. Kampot and Kep are famous for the number of caves for those who are into abseiling or rock climbing. And then at La Plantation, which is a pepper plantation, they have a cooking class there. They also have the buffalo cart ride. There's a little bit of a different spin on the buffalo cart ride there because you can see the buffaloes are in the water. That's why they call them water buffaloes. Kampot and Kep are coming up as more interesting destinations than just a little weekend getaway for people from Phnom Penh. Up and coming nightlife in Phnom Penh. Top left, you can see here, that's the Sky Bar at the Rosewood. Right below it is the Samai Rum Distillery. There's a great nightlife scene starting to develop in Phnom Penh. I lived in Bangkok for many, many years, and Bangkok is world famous for its nightlife. Phnom Penh didn't have too much to do for too long. You couldn't get a good cocktail in Phnom Penh until 5 or 6 years ago, outside of, let's say, the Elephant Bar at the Raffles. But there's really starting to develop a really interesting nightlife scene in Phnom Penh. And in addition to shopping and some cultural activities, I think Phnom Penh certainly deserves a bit more notice from people who other might be like, oh, why should we go there? It's not touristy. It's a very Cambodian city, but at the same time, it's becoming quite modern nowadays. So you have this combination of old world charm and modern convenience and luxury and nightlife. So it's certainly worth checking out. One of the things that we put together recently with the Vespa Adventures folks, we're doing a Cambodian craft beer adventure now. The craft beer scene is finally starting to take off here in Cambodia. So we have a craft beer adventure by Vespa. The Vespa tours are a great way to see the nightlife in the city and get some local food. Now we have a way to do it so that you can get some food and some local craft beer. Okay, so yeah, I got through that pretty well, I think. Again, there's lots to talk about. This is a little bit about me. I've written various guidebooks for National Geographic and Photos and a number of online travel publications. This is my 5th time to Ratnakiri, I think. And it's really great to see how these areas of Cambodia that really once were just for intrepid people with guidebooks in hand, now, here at XO, we're able to put together really cool multi-day tours and the experiences for all different types of travelers. Yeah, all these new roads are just amazing. They're so nice, and they're giving you access to areas that are still spectacular natural beauty and really fascinating culture that just weren't accessible even 2-3 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. So I think it's really coming up as a country as a single stop destination. The beaches, the temples, great nature, fascinating culture. I think easily 2 weeks in Cambodia can be filled in all sorts of different ways. So obviously people want to come to see Angkor, but there's so many things to do nowadays that it's almost hard to say, all right, well, what's the best way to spend a week in Cambodia? Just because there's all these new provinces that are opening up to tourism. So if anybody has any questions, you'll notice that on your control panel there's a little section for questions, and you can go in and type some questions, and then I'll go ahead and answer them as I find them. Here's a question. How long would it take to drive from Phnom Penh to Krache? Generally, like an easy way to think of it, there's like 5 places that you can drive from Phnom Penh to in 5 hours. So you can get to Krache in about 5 hours. You can see Siem Reap in about 5 hours. You can get to Battambang in about 5 hours. You can get to Sihanoukville in about 5 hours. Again, it depends on what day of the week. And leaving the city can be some trouble, So let's say 5 to 6 hours with a lunch stop. Of course, there's a couple of things to stop and see along the way. Wat Nokar, which is in Kampong Cham, about halfway from Phnom Penh to Krache. It's a beautiful old Angkor temple. And the Kampong Cham is on the Mekong River, nice place to stop for lunch. Next question was, any flights to Mondulkiri or Ratnakiri from Phnom Penh? Not anymore, and not yet, I believe, are the answers. I once flew from Ratnakiri to Phnom Penh in a Cessna. It used to be a small flight service. You could get out here by helicopter if you had the money to fly from Phnom Penh or from Siem Reap. It's quite far to hire a helicopter, but it could be done. But no, there's not really any flights to Mondulkiri or Ratnakiri. The only thing that's good is that now you can drive here much more quickly than you used to be able to. Next question. Roughly how long is the drive from Stong Trang to Siem Reap? Now, that's one road I have not yet driven. So I'd have to check Google Maps for that, which is actually pretty good. Like Google Maps, when you check the drive times on that, they're pretty accurate. I can usually do them a little bit faster than, let me check on my phone real quick and see what they say. Stung Trang to Siem Reap, you could definitely do it in a day, no problem. The question is whether or not you would want to stop and spend the night at Privy here. You could probably do it in a day trip from Stung Treng and visit Preah Vihear Temple and Koke Temple Complex and Siem Reap all in the same day pretty easily. I don't like to rush too much, you know, like you can't see so much if you're trying to cram in too much. So let's get directions here. Stung Treng do. Siem Reap. Okay, it says 4 hours and 45 minutes. So that's probably pretty accurate for your average driver. I'd probably do it in 4:30. But that's certainly an easy day drive from Stung Treng to Siem Reap, because that road is probably just as nice and new as the roads out here in these provinces. Okay, Nick Page also said, he loved the totems. Yeah, that one holding the AK-47. I saw another one yesterday. I think it's for like village chiefs. If it's like the chief of a village, yeah, they give the totem an assault rifle carving as well. But a lot of the totems that we saw yesterday at the graves were, they looked very sad. And that's what made me think that they were probably part of the mourning period, because we were told that they create these carvings and they bury the dead with these totems surrounding their grave sites. And there was bird totems and monkey totems as well as people totems. And then after the funeral, they never returned to that grave site and they let it just decay. And so I think that they do that as part of the grieving process, and then they leave their sorrows with the totem. The AK-47, I guess, is just to protect them in the afterlife. There's another question about new luxury hotels in Battambang. She was there in 2013, Battambang Resort in Bamboo. You know, there isn't anything on like the super high luxury end in Battambang. Battambang has a number of new colonial style boutique hotels, like either converted old houses or converted old buildings into boutique hotels. So there is a greater variety of nicer hotels in Battambang, but there's nothing really not like that related to Shillong or Shintamani yet in Phnom Penh. But Holly, if you want to send me an email at trevor@exotravel.com, I can share with you a list of all of the newer properties or all the current properties that we offer in the closer to luxury range. Any other questions? I only have a few minutes left. I only get 60 minutes to record, and then I believe it's going to cut me off. So I have room for a couple of more questions if anybody has them. And I'd encourage anyone, if they are coming to Cambodia, to take a little bit of time to explore beyond Siem Reap and Angkor. It's just beautiful, and the weather is great right now. I don't know where all of you are listening from, but it's about 23 degrees here this morning. A little bit of a breeze. Really nice this time of year. You know, I did my last podcast about why travel to Cambodia during the green season. And, it's already starting to dry out a little bit here in December, a little bit of yellow here and there. It is interesting that it's a different experience in the dry season versus the green season. Notably that you can swim in the waterfalls now, because in the green season, some of the falls are running a little bit too strong to swim in. So now it's been great to come back when there's obviously still a lot of water, but it's easier to swim in those waterfalls and pools beneath them. And then again, just there are still quite a lot of dirt roads in this part of the country, and they're not mud this time of year. So there's different villages, different areas you can get to. So it's almost like you could do this trip twice in 1 year, as I have, and have two very different experiences simply because you have access to different areas depending on what the road conditions are and how heavy the water is flowing here and there. You can visit different villages, you can do different things. But yeah, they're sealing the roads quite quickly, which is a good thing for the people in the villages. It's definitely changing the dynamics for those communities. It's interesting that you can drive what used to be hours out of the city now in like 30 minutes, and see these peoples that are still living such traditional lifestyles. Um, it's obviously access to the roads and development is going to change their culture even more and change the nature of the landscape. So again, I'd encourage people to come to this part of Cambodia while they still can. I mean, it'll probably be another 10 years or more before it's too developed to be considered an escape to Eastern Cambodia region. Now is a great time to come. I'm really happy to be back here, and I strongly encourage people to visit not only Eastern Cambodia, but like I said, Bante Chamar, which is beautiful. There's supposed to be a new road that's opening up from Battambang south to Koh Kong in the near future. And that's going to, I think, be a game changer as well, because people can go from Siem Reap to Battambang and then drive straight down to Koh Kong. And I'll be reporting on that pretty soon, because as soon as that road does open up, that's going to create some really great new itineraries as well. So I'll be busy in the next 6 months or so trying to make different variants of these experiences available for everybody. At the same time, people want to customize their itineraries and do different things. That's really easy to do as well. I'm sharing all this information with our TCs so that they know what's happening, what's up and coming, what are the good new hotels to stay at in all of these different areas, and they should be able to put together customized itineraries for you, which I'm always willing to help with. So we only got 10 seconds left here. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And again, send me an email at trevor@exotravel.com, and I can answer any of your questions. Thank you.